Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Series 2, Episode 12 of Holistic Emails, Email and More, a Q&A with. I'm your moderator, Skip Fedora, and for those who are new to the show, on every episode we showcase a different topic with a different panel of experts, and today we are talking about the art and science of deliverability. Now, as you know, this is really your show. We bring together the experts, but it's your questions that drive the conversation. It's unscripted, unrehearsed, and a whole lot of fun. Now let me share some slides with you there while I do that. There we go. So one of the biggest challenges that for any business, for every business, is that all the value creation that comes from delivering your service or delivering your product or putting it to market can be lost in that last mile. That great customer experience that you built into your e-commerce website is forgotten by poor delivery. The Michelin star meal doesn't taste quite as good when delivered by a surly waitstaff. And that premium economy seat is not as comfortable when the flight's delayed. If you're a B2B or on the services side, that strategy presentation won't land if it's got a typo in it. For email marketers, that last mile is deliverability. And that is what our amazing panel will be discussing today. This topic always generates lots of questions, and we want to get through as many as possible. So please start getting your questions into the Q&A tab over there on the right-hand side of your screen. And then feel free to use the chat for everything else. You guys are using the chat very well already, but just to find out a little bit more about who you are and where you are, go into the chat tab and tell us where you are and tell us about the weather where you are. So you may have noticed that I'm not in my usual spot. I am in America, and it's interestingly, usually I'm in Virginia, which is in the American South. It's usually very hot and very humid. Today, it's cooler than London, and it's definitely cooler than our two panelists in Spain. So I'm kind of glad I'm here, actually, oddly. Although, so typical, I've been stuck in London for 18 months, and as soon as I leave, the great weather comes out. But hey-ho, these things happen. So, like all things with email marketing, especially when it comes to deliverability, your question may be super complicated, super specific to you and your business, or something you just don't want to share in front of a huge audience. That's cool. Today's speakers are going to be happy to answer your questions after our panel discussion at the roundtables. You would have seen those when you came in. So be sure to pull up a chair, turn on your microphone, turn on your camera, and join us as we keep the chat going in a much more informal setting. In addition to chatting with our amazing experts and meeting other email marketers, such as yourselves, one lucky roundtable participant will win a Kindle copy of Kath's book. This is the Kindle copy of Kath's book. I'm really, really frustrated. As I said, I'm in America, but I have Kath's book. I brought it with me because I don't go anywhere without it. Unfortunately, I left it on the nightstand in my room, not in my rucksack. So, but somebody will win the book, and the Kindle version looks just like this, only on a Kindle. Now, none of this would be possible without our wonderful, wonderful sponsors. This series is brought to you by our gold sponsors, Iterable and Validity, and our silver sponsors, RPE Origin and Email Expert. Big, big thank you to all of you for everything you've done to make this entire series possible. Speaking of the series, if you want to go back and see any of the amazing episodes from Series 1, or you want to catch up on Series 2 so far, you can find them all on YouTube or on Holistic Email's website. And I will put a link in the chat. In fact, I'll do that just now before I forget. Look at me multitasking, not very well. There you go. Now, let's get down to business. We've put together an absolutely brilliant panel today to talk through the art and science of deliverability. With me, as always, is best-selling author and award-winning thought leader, Kath and Adios, both from Holistic Email Marketing. We've got Andrew Bonar, co-founder of Email Expert, who I think, I could have this wrong, Andrew will correct me, but I'm pretty sure you could definitely call him what did I say earlier? Like, he was one of the creators. He was an innovator. He was the cutting edge in the deliverability space, one of the first deliverability people out there. And
yeah, maybe not. But there's
Okay, maybe
25
not.
years. There's 25 years there. But yeah, people like Al Iverson and a couple of others certainly have a few years on.
Oh, don't be modest. And last but absolutely not least, I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to Ignacio. I got his last name right when we were doing rehearsals, and then I just botched his first name. Ignacio Laquona, Customer Success Manager at Validity. Everybody say hello.
Hey.
Or wave. Waving is good. Now, folks, I see no questions in the Q&A, and this is a deliverability panel, right? There are probably 10 questions for every one of you on it. So I'm expecting 500 questions in the Q&A panel in the next 30, 40 seconds or so. But while you're doing that, let's get our panelists to quickly introduce themselves. Adiola, let's start with you.
Whenever I'm on, you always... Hi, I'm Adiola.
First off, ladies first. And
Okay.
secondly, your first name starts with an A.
Okay, so we're going alphabetically. Okay, fine. Hi, everyone. I'm Adiola. I'm one of the senior consultants at Holistic Email Marketing. I have no idea why I'm so enthusiastic right now, because I literally was just complaining about how hot it is. I'm looking forward to... Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay. Sorry. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I'm going to keep my movements to a minimum so that the internet doesn't freak out. And yes, so I'm part of Holistic Email Marketing, and we're a small agency boutique, and we work with so many amazing clients, and we help them with their CRM, their strategy. We also help them with their deliverability as well. I get to work with the amazing Kath, and I know she's going to introduce herself soon. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation.
Cool. Andrew, you've already started to introduce yourself, but go ahead and tell us the rest of the story, mate.
Myself?
What's that?
Was that for me?
That's for you, mate. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, 25 plus years in the email space. Founder of emailexpert.com, which is a inclusive community for email geeks. So if you haven't checked it out already, please do check out emailexpert.com.org.info, any of the sites. I've worked generally with multi-tenant senders. So I've worked with people like SmartFocus, Digital, Email Vision, Campaign Monitor, GetResponse, Klaviyo, Outreach, and others, as well as big enterprise brands like Kogan and Freelancer.com and others, but mostly in the multi-tenant space. So as opposed to worrying about the deliverability of one sender, the deliverability of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 senders within an organization. So slightly different, more macro view of deliverability, I suppose.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Ignacio.
You're on mute, Skip.
Am I? I don't think I'm on mute.
Not now. No, now you're not.
Ignacio.
I think it's good. Hello, everyone. Hi, Ignacio here, based in Madrid, Customer Success Manager for Validity. I'm lucky enough to be working with different clients from different sectors, trying to understand what's going on with their email program, try to help them using data to see how things can get better. And something I always tell myself is, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be here with all of you, is the fact that, getting this 1% better every single day and learning. And I think this is going to be a great session to learn and to discuss among ourselves this enjoyable side of deliverability and email marketing. So really looking forward.
Cool. Thank you, Ignacio. And last but certainly not least, Kath.
Hey everyone, I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for the introduction, Adiola. I don't think I need to say anything more about Holistic. You did such a great job. So a little bit about me then. So as Skip said, so I've written a book and won an award this year for the Email Marketing Thought Lead from the ANA EEC. So pretty chuffed about that. And I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation. Deliverability, I guess, Andrew and I actually first ran into each other as we were both kind of like deliverability experts then, and it was many, many, many years ago. And so it's always been a very interesting topic for me. And it's very interesting to see how things have changed over the years as well. But, it's certainly not staying static. So let's get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get started. So I have to say, the audience is let us down a little bit. We don't have 500 questions in yet. So they're going to have to, just make do with my questions. But a few quick shout outs. I just want to give a shout out to Jules, who outed me for basically sitting in a room with no windows. She's like, what are you talking about? It's cloudy in Richmond today. But anyway, thanks, Jules. Thanks for that. Right. So, Kath, you just talked about how deliverability has changed. I don't want to get into that necessarily, although we can. But let's start with a simple one. What's the biggest deliverability myth? Right? I can tell you what, I used to hear from clients, it's the ESP's fault.
Yep.
Big myth. But what do you guys think? What do you come across as the biggest? Let's maybe change the way the question's worded. Not necessarily the biggest myth, but the biggest pushback that you have to overcome from someone who's going through some deliverability issues.
I think sometimes, I think sometimes it's actually a mix of two different things. There are some marketers, and no fault to their own, that will actually confuse deliverability with delivered. So they'll use that metric within their ESP and say, oh, but it's like 99% delivered, so I don't have a problem. And then there are others that understand that they want to have a deeper knowledge about their deliverability, but then it's the access to getting that information. And then again, like you said, Skip, it's then having putting the onus on the ESP, because I think there is throughout that process, or that tendering process, a lot of marketers, and myself included when I definitely was on client side, is that if we've decided to choose you and we've decided to trust you with our data, everything else beyond that is your problem. So you help me fix it. So it's around having that conversation and understanding that actually deliverability is a shared issue, and it starts from within. So you have to start looking at your data, for one, like, is your data clean? And then looking at your actual email builds and so forth. Do all the different email clients like the way that you're building your campaigns and so forth? And are your subscribers behaving in a way that is favorable to these email clients as well? So there are so many different factors that then need to be, pulled in or looked at. And I don't think everyone always has the access or the knowledge to know where to start. I feel like I've really expanded. Sorry.
That's cool. No,
I totally agree. And, what we do come across with too is that most people, when they come to us and they're wanting us to resolve the problem, they kind of think it's going to be one issue, just one single thing that was done, rather than it being a accumulation of things or a whole heap of little, different changes. And so they're not ready to actually re-strategize their whole program. They're not ready to make significant changes. They only sort of think, oh yeah, but you can just change it, can't you, in the back end? Maybe reach out to them, tell them that we're good people, sorted. So where, sometimes that will be as simple as that, truly, but it's not always the case.
Gentlemen, either of you want to jump in?
I would agree that defining what do we mean by deliverability is a good place to start, as Adiola said. So I think inbox placement is probably what most people are thinking of, and timely inbox placement being deliverability as opposed to delivery. So that was a really good place to start, I think, Adiola. Just defining that, because there is some confusion around delivery and deliverability. The biggest resistance, I think, and I'm not discounting any of those points because they're all absolutely correct. What Kath was saying, people tend to think, oh, it's going to be one thing. I just need to fix the spam bot signups or something. And maybe it is just one thing that's causing you your issues. But in most mature programs, it's going to be a multiple series of issues. The biggest resistance I think I find to any kind of suggestions around deliverability is revenue. But you want me to do X, Y, or Z, and it's going to impact my revenue. And that's the biggest obstacle I tend to find people facing when it comes to talking about changing your program and doing things differently to achieve better deliverability. And any good deliverability consultant isn't trying to, or any deliverability consultant worth their salt is not trying to achieve 100% inbox placement necessarily for you. They're on the same page as you. They want to shift the needle and they want to increase ROI. And yeah, sometimes doing something that might be risky to your delivery or deliverability is going to pay returns, and within a wider program that you're actually taking a sensible look at things and sensible approach. And as Stella would say, not doing anything stupid. Deliverability is one part of the equation, and so I would say there's two parts to it. One is this guy or this team is here to destroy my revenue and tell me everything has to be done absolutely by the book. And the other thing is these people don't understand the business, they don't understand the commercials, they're not interested in that, they're only interested in the technical side, and I think both of those would be fallacies. I had a third but slipped.
All right, Ignacio, what are your thoughts, mate?
Sure. So, of course, super valid points, all of them. Following up a little bit with what Adiola said, right? So the lack of getting to that data, right? Deliverability. It's not just understanding it, getting access to it. So a lot of times as well, I found myself of a business wanting to invest on a platform that gets you those points of data to take a look at, right? But at the end, the expectation created around getting the platform seems like it's going to be resolving all the problems. It's understanding the different data points, trying to, they can allude to inbox placement for reputation, those networks that you have access to through different platforms, right? And something that I found is that it's not the businesses don't see it the same way. You have the marketer getting really knowing exactly how things should work. But then you got the business on the other hand saying, hey, we have to send as many emails as we can. We have to try to reach out to as many people as we can. It doesn't matter if they're engaged, they're not engaged. So there is a bit of teaching around deliverability as well. Not just to the marketers, but to the whole business, saying, look, maybe in this type, and we've seen through the pandemic as well, that a lot of times less is more. So teaching the different businesses to reach out to that set mindset, it's something that I think there is a bit of way to work on.
So Ignacio, you mentioned or touched on two things which I think are really, really key. One, at the very beginning, you mentioned invest. I find when I'm, as a consultant, speaking to them, they just think of it as being an expense, right? So the marketer understands it's an investment, but the C-suite who have to actually sign it off, they just go, oh, that's an expense. They don't fully understand. If you're going to be paying to get your list cleaned, it's an investment. It's going to help you to deliver, get your emails delivered into the inbox, and it's going to give you the healthy ROI. The other point too is that you mentioned, and I've talked about this a lot as well, is that when they finally do invest and they're investing into, a monitoring system, that their expectations often are of, okay, now I'm sorted. It's doing everything for me. It's like it's monitoring, it's giving you the insights, it's giving you the data, it's giving you the ability to delve deeper. But you still have to do the strategy. You still have to be, setting up the alerts and looking at them, actioning them, knowing what you want to do beyond that. So yes, I think that there were two really, really good points that you pulled up on.
It's almost like it's a really interesting it's a really interesting thing, email deliverability, for people outside of the business. So when you're talking about educating people outside of the marketing space, it's one of the few things in business where, as a business, I pay for something to happen, and it may or may not happen, right? It's it's not like putting a stamp on a letter. That's going to get delivered, but I've paid for you, the vendor, to do something for me, or I've paid for my in-house team to do something for me, and it may or may not happen. And what do you mean that's outside of your control? Like, call somebody at Google and tell them to, and so I think that's very frustrating for them. But Kath, you and Ignacio hit on a really interesting point about the investment component of investing in deliverability. It's almost like maybe we need to position it for people outside of marketing as maintenance, right? If you have a manufacturing plant, once a year you shut down the plant to do maintenance on all the machines. Sure, technically that is a cost, and it comes off your P&L as a cost, but that's so the machine lasts longer, right? So that asset that you've worked hard and spent a lot of money on to acquire lasts longer. So those are two interesting things. I think maybe part of our challenge is explaining this to the rest of the business in terms they understand. So we've got some great questions coming in. Thank you, everybody. And I want to take this first one because it builds off what we've just been talking about. So this is from Kin Greenup Gadsby, a marketing automation specialist at somewhere. Unfortunately, it truncated. I don't know where, but thanks, Kib. Thanks for the question. And the question is, what's the best way to assess deliverability health?
Oh, look at that. You guys have really switched it up with the whole presentation.
We just stuff happens. Adiola, stuff just happens here.
You know what? I think that's a great question, and I'm playing devil's advocate today on this panel. And I would say it's quite hard in the first instance as a marketer, as an email marketer, to detect it, because if you're looking at your normal metrics such as opens, conversions, and revenue, and month on month, week on week, year on year, they all look fantastic. You're achieving your targets. To you, there probably isn't an issue because everything is ticking along quite nicely. I think it's definitely a more proactive approach. The only time where you're probably going to see a significant indicator is if your metrics start to drop. And there's no real, if you haven't changed anything too drastically within your day-to-day operation, then there is a cause for you to start looking at other issues, such as not just your segmentation, because I think that's where people would also first look at. It's the segment. Let's test time of day. You have to proactively want to start looking at deliverability, because it isn't something that just jumps out at you as an issue, and your ESPs won't necessarily flag it straight away unless you have a conversation and interrogate them on your data health and so forth, because they can potentially see these things on the back end. So I would say, from my opinion, it is very much a proactive thing that a marketer has to do. You have to know to look for your deliverability, and then it comes on, and I'm sure this esteemed panel will tell you of places in where you can where you can use, which tools you can use to actually help you, as Kath said, monitor and review your deliverability. But again, it does require a lot of lifting from the marketer side. And
I would love to jump in before people talk about platforms that can be used, because there are platforms that can be used, and there's other people on this panel that are better placed to talk about that. But you have data already available to you. So if you haven't got the budget right now to go out and see other platforms, there is data available to you right now. I might get shot down by some. Per ISP open rates, whilst they're still available to you, is an incredible metric. If you're seeing consistent open rates of 20% across X number of vendors, and one vendor sticking out with 0% open rates, there's clearly a delivery problem there. So there is data that you can mine yourself, and obviously you should also be looking at the response codes that the recipient mail servers are giving you, depending on what kind of ESP setup you have. You may or may not have access to that. I'm talking from the type of sender that has access to everything, every piece of information. But there is, in those logs, in those those bounces, the soft bounces especially, before it gets to hard bounces, if you start actually digging into those codes and what ISPs are telling you, there is an awful lot of data there. But the easiest and quickest one would be per ISP open rates. That's always been, or traditionally been, one of the go-to metrics that I would tell marketers to look at when they haven't got access to additional suites and stuff, additional tools and things. But there are tools out there that will speed up the process and things. But yeah, I mean, looking at specifically, what's already available to you first before you go out and spend more money is probably a good place to start with.
Absolutely. And you know what, I find it's really, really hard to sort of say, oh, this is what you need to do, because sometimes it goes against logic. So sometimes you might sort of go, wow, we're getting the lowest complaint rates, we're getting the lowest unsubscribe rates, we're doing really, really well. It could actually be an indication that you're doing really, really badly, because your emails actually aren't getting into the inbox for the people to be complaining about or to be unsubscribing from, right? So always keep your eye on those to see if they're spiking up or even dropping down, right? If you do have a tool, one of my favorite metrics on the tool to give you an idea of how you're going and so give you a forecast is to look at the delay, so the throttling. So if you can actually be, determined and look and see that, oh, wow, okay, so we're now up to 5 minutes last, delay, and last week we're at 3 seconds. And then the week after, the following week, you're like at 30 minutes. And so that you've got a problem and it's worsening. And what happens is that the ISPs will do that. So it's like a warning signal to you. They're kind of like going, hey guys, there's a problem. We're kind of treating you like this. Maybe Adiola, could you mute, because I just heard some feedback. Sorry. No. And then so that's for you to pay attention to, take note of, and action accordingly. So that's one of my favorite ones.
If I could quickly tie those three things together, because I remember the third thing that I missed, which was spam complaints. So, what was one of the most common misconceptions Skip started with? Spam complaints, that you actually know your spam complaint rate. If you're looking at your aggregate Skip spam complaint rate in your ESP and assuming that, it's 0.003% and you're happy with that, I suggest you have a look again at per ISP complaint rates and find out what your complaint rates are, on a specific ISP level. If you're a B2B sender or something, for example, and only a small subset of your list is Gmail or someone with a feedback loop, not every complaint is reported back to you. Your complaint percentages, statistics, your real complaint rate might be much, much higher than you actually think. So yeah, that ties together the three points. What's a common misconception? One of the most common misconceptions is that they think that spam complaint rate that they see in their in their ESP is actually a true indication of what their complaint rate is, and it's actually much, much higher than what most ESPs will be reporting to you.
Is following up on Andrew. Andrew gave you the explanation. If you don't have the budget, what you could take a look at. Of course, I come from Validity, right? So I'm going to have to speak a little bit about our platform as well. But leaving that aside, at the end, I think the health coming from Deliverability is not just taking a look to how the seats maybe they're behaving, but it's kind of a holistic view, right? So through integrations, being able to see in a single place how different the reputation is working, the unknown complaints, etc., data coming from one place, data coming from the other, putting those together could give you a pretty good understanding of what is going on in your program. And actually really liked what Kath mentioned, that well, yeah, the opens might be great. Everything looks to be working really good, but actually maybe half of the people that you're sending to, they're not actually receiving the email. So I thought it was a really good point, but for me to see the health around deliverability as well. There are some thresholds you need to take a look at, that's for sure, but taking all the possibilities with budget, with time to take a look at them, as it was mentioned before, setting up the alerts and taking a look to different things, but seeing the overall look of how a campaign has performed against another one, if it's a really high season of sends, compare how things happen over the last year. That should give you an understanding of how things are working on your program. There are things that I think are quite important to take a look at, right? And for me, even though that reputation through the ISP point of view has still been something that they take a look at, but engagement has become now the main filtering decision maker. So as much information as you can get around the engagement of your subscribers, I think that could actually help you a lot to understand if you have a healthy deliverability or not.
Adiola, you look like you wanted to say something. No? Okay. You nodded, you reached forward like you were going to unmute. And I was like, oh, okay, Adiola's got something.
Go ahead.
I was agreeing with everything he was saying. And then I started having other thoughts about someone asked a question about hacks, and I was like looking in like, that's an interesting question. Sorry. I'll mute now.
Okay. Kath, you want me to go with the open rate question? Which question is that?
Okay, so it says, do you think we will still be able to spot deliverability issues quickly?
Oh, okay. I can
by
do that.
looking at open rates.
There you go. So
Yeah.
this question from Carl Ashton, as you can see from ProCook. Do you think we'll still be able to spot deliverability issues quickly by looking at open rates when the new iOS updates happen?
No, I can't answer this one.
We don't want to. I just want to. There's a lot of Apple iOS questions, and we will try to get to some of those. But there's some other stuff we don't want to. We don't want to rabbit hole into this area too deeply, if we can avoid it. So, Kath, why don't you take that one first?
Okay. So, I mean, for me, I've still probably got more questions than I have answers for looking into the future, for understanding ISPs and how they're going to be measuring success, because they're basically doing it on opens at the moment. If others start to follow suit with Apple, that Apple's doing, what's going to happen? Are they going to change? Therefore, we change, whatever the story is. For the here and the now, though, while we're still only dealing with Apple having done it, you basically need to benchmark your before and your afters. And then, because we all understand with the Apple change, we're going to get an increase in opens, right? So all emails that are being sent to Apple devices are going to be having, or iOS, are going to be having their emails automatically opened, or the pixel automatically downloaded, right? So it's really going to be a case of looking at it. I mean, open rate's never been an overly, as we all know, an overly accurate measurement in the first place. It's going to become even more so now. So yeah, from my perspective, just for the here and the now, I think you're just going to have to do what you can. Do your benchmark before, do your benchmark afterwards, and then start and keep monitoring whilst we still understand that the ISPs are using open rates as a success metric. I mean, I would really love to hear what Andrew has to think, because he's awesomely clever on this.
From my perspective, I think it's a different iteration of what we've already seen before. We've seen something with Yahoo, that we definitely saw something with Gmail, where they tried to, obfuscate stuff. It's not the first time we've seen this as marketers, where they're trying to obfuscate the opens, or where the opens are coming from, or the times of the opens. So it's a different iteration. Specifically, I need to test this theory out and see how it plays out. In theory, what I was talking about in terms of monitoring deliverability issues on a per ISP basis, actually, this probably won't negatively impact your ability to do that. So if they're receiving that message on Apple, you can't be using it as your open rate for whatever else you're doing it for. But as far as deliverability goes, certainly the fact that it was a machine or a man, woman, whatever person that opened that message, it's got to the iPhone, it's been delivered. So as far as the delivery side of it goes, I couldn't care less whether it was the person that opened it or the machine that opened it, it got delivered, which is what I was talking about using those metrics for. However, the chain reaction to that and what else marketers like to do with the open rates, then yes, that definitely potentially have lots of impact.
But Andrew, before everybody else jumps in, I just want a quick point of clarification or your thoughts on this. So I'll be able to tell if the machine opened it. So I'll know that it's getting into the inbox. But one of the things, and including Apple's, postmasters, one of the things that every, mail service provider says is, stop sending to people who are unengaged. And, so stop sending to the people who have stopped opening. Stop sending to the people who have stopped clicking. You won't be, as a sender, how am I going to identify those people? I can identify if the ISP says, actually, we're not going to deliver your email, but I can't pick out individuals who are inactive.
ISPs tend to be a bit, the ISPs, the mailbox providers tend to be a bit more vague than that and talk about, making sure you're sending to recipients that want to receive the mail, as opposed to some of those other terms which comes from us as deliverability people and ISPs who have all these other touch points. And we're saying, look, the ISPs want you to send mail that clients want. Certainly some ISPs have categorically stated we're not checking whether people are opening messages. We can't see whether people are opening messages. Some ISPs, mailbox providers can't see that. Some are, some aren't. But as deliverability people and as email marketing best practice people were saying, we have got access to all of those touch points currently. We can tell whether they're opening, whether they're clicking, whether they're doing something post action, and you should use all of that to see whether or not the person wants to receive your email. So I don't think, certainly I would suggest Apple making this move reflects the fact that probably at Apple, they never ever actually measured people's open rates as a way of gauging whether or not a sender should be blocked. Certainly others probably do. So I don't know. Maybe Microsoft uses that metric an awful lot more, and they may be scratching their heads as to whether they would want to obfuscate that from the end user and the marketer.
And so so I like that. Going back to your point of, it's only sent it to people who want to receive it. Whereas if this metric does go away, we have loads of others, right? We've got other channels. Are they coming to the website? Are they interacting with your app? Are they, interacting with you other places? So now, unfortunately, for email marketers, a lot of whom don't always have access to that data, now they've got until October to go get it.
Yeah, I also think though that we see this is when it comes down to the art and science of deliverability, because what we have to do for deliverability, which is very much focusing on the engagement metrics and such, is different to what we have to do to actually be to run a successful email marketing program. But we also it is the same, right? Because we need to get the deliverability, we need to get the inbox placement in order for us to get the sales and the revenue and everything in. So it really still comes back down to looking at all of the metrics, looking at whether the conversions are happening, whether your return on investment is fantastic, your revenue per email is still high, is still the same, everything like that. So all of that is still going to be applicable. And And that's why sometimes I think a lot of brands struggle with, because there is that kind of a disconnect. They're focusing on those meaningful metrics because they affect the bottom line of the company and they actually help them with their KPIs. Whereas deliverability is very much focused on those engagement metrics, which are indicators, but not always, the end result.
I always say we're looking for the sweet spot when I'm working with clients. Is like that we're going to be looking at the sweet spot between what's perfect for your marketing, because you've done outlandish, crazy things that drove huge results, but ended up with you being blocked. And then I can give you a huge set of recommendations, which means you're never blocked, and the message is going to the inbox, but people are just deleting them without ever opening them as well, because you've given them all the information in the subject line. So it's always trying to find where those two intersect and what's the sweet spot. And at what point am I hurting my bottom line by trying to improve my deliverability? And generally people come to me or others because whatever they've been doing, their deliverability is now starting to impact their bottom line in a negative way because of the stuff that we've been done with marketing, and you don't want to tweak it and improve it so much that you end up back in the same place because you're throwing out all of the stuff that's working for the marketer and just solely focused on those engagement type metrics.
It's so interesting what you guys are talking about. I completely agree with you, and also going back a bit to the benchmarking. Auditing is something I'm speaking with some clients right now, auditing what happened before. And taking as well the engagement side of things is that zero-party data, getting the data straight away from your customers. What are they looking for? How they would like to be contacted? And what type of offers? So those emails that we've seen through the pandemic, right? Having this value-added emails showing you something, explaining something. We've seen a lot of companies shifting from an offer-based emails to adding some value. If we could also add some type of, the preference center, we all know how it works, but some type of profiling through emails as well to try to find more about how people would like to be contacted. And the audit that Kath spoke about, right? Benchmarking. And it should take us as well to a position, I think, where we get to understand better the subscribers and we are able to target them actually with what they want to receive. And that's, I think, is going to be something that we're going to be seeing in the future. And hopefully that's something I'm going to be advocating with my clients to try to get that zero-party data to try to boost the engagement and the way they interact with the customers.
Ignacio, that's a really interesting point. I've never heard it delivered in an email context. I usually hear it delivered more in a search more in a search context. I'm not on mute?
No.
Okay, so I usually hear it more in a search context, which is about instead of trying to beat the algorithm, if you just deliver what people are searching for, don't worry about the Google algorithm. It'll actually catch up with you. And it sounds like you're almost saying the same thing about deliverability. Stop trying to, it's not that you shouldn't worry about deliverability, but if you're delivering, going with the cliche, the right message to the right person at the right time, well, then you're never gonna have a problem. So, you don't have to worry about the Google algorithm that doesn't put you in the inbox. You've gotten there ahead of it.
I think it's going to get more and more important if you don't get the data from Open, so that data of Opens is flawed somehow. And you don't get what you want, or actually, when you plug the mobile and it's delivered, you get the Open, but it's not really something that I think you can take into account. Maybe the Opens will begin to be lower. However, on the other side, if you are able to get, as you said, right, that email to the right person with the right content, with the right offer, with the right value, you're going to get at the end, maybe on the side of the return on investment and the money you're getting from the program, it's going to be balancing from one side to another. So this is something as well that could happen. And I think it can be a good idea to start thinking on that way. Because it's Apple, Yahoo, Gmail were doing, as Andrew mentioned. Now is Apple. They're going to be following up, I think. So we need to find other strategies to get the right message and start, have a good email program, getting what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting point. I want to pick up two questions. I'm going to tie the two questions together only because it seems to flow nice. So we've got a question from Janet about the trends that we're seeing with deliverability. Specifically, are we hitting the inbox more or less often these days? But then Norman takes it over the next couple of years. What trends do you think we're going to be seeing? What changes are we going to see in the deliverability space from the mail platforms?
On that,
I think
we got a yep. We've just as a small little thing. We got a bunch
I think
of
Ignacio might be
reports.
best placed, but I think for the last few years, Validity's annual report shows pretty consistent problems. I mean, it goes up and down by 1 or 2%, maybe. South or Latin America improves for a year or two, and then Europe takes a dip. But I think Ignacio's got those stats probably to hand, but it's been consistent for the past 10 years or more. Was it 80% inbox placement, more or less, if you're a good sender, or an average sender? I'm not sure what those stats are, but I don't think we're seeing anything. I don't think it's become any more difficult to reach inbox than it has previously. Just that inbox might be a bit more crowded now. I deleted 5 gig of messages yesterday and don't think I would have noticed.
Yeah, on that, actually, that Validity is partnering up with the DMA. So if you go to the website, there is already out the email benchmark tracking, the report, where it talks about deliveries, the different data we've seen throughout the year. Some data as well through the pandemic times as well. So it's out. I think it went out today, actually. So I recommend everyone on the call just to understand where the industry is going and the different numbers that are around. It would be good for you, I think, just to take a look to the report. It's out. You just have to go to the website and download it to take a look to that. But just to the Andrew's point, we've seen maybe a lower delivery rate from a B2C comparing to a B2B, and those metrics are fluctuating. So for the last years, the metrics have been better. What it seems, and I was able to take a look quickly through the report, we've seen as well that now the metrics are not increasing as they were in the previous years. But again, there will be a webinar about it. So and you can also take a look to that for sure.
You should drop that link inside the chat.
The kind of changes I would hope to see medium and long term is marketers looking at other inboxes and other channels. So not everything needs to be an email. I would suggest, going back to some of Ignacio's points, some of those things are maybe better delivered by your bot, your app, your browser notification, or whatever else. Maybe marketers start to look at some of those other opt-ins that they have and some of those other channels and start using email more strategically within everything, because it's a very powerful tool. But if you just overburden the inbox, like I said, I literally went through my promotions tab and was trying to work out what do I keep, what don't I keep, and in the end I just
I deleted I think it was
and delete,
8,000.
and 5 gig went. Something like 5 gig of promotions. Just I need space, and that's something else we're going to see. So Gmail promised us unlimited mailboxes, and there's loads of people are now finding that the unlimited is no longer unlimited, and people's mailboxes are filling because they're sharing it with photos or whatever else. People are going to be deleting more in the next 2 or 3 years. I think that will be a trend that people are seeing and noticing, and maybe some of that stuff that Della talks about, where people are searching the inbox for their old messages, will be less impactful, because if Adiola's done it and I've done it, we can't be the only ones. just blatting
I was
promotions
forced
tab.
to do it. Outlook had sent me a message saying that I'm reaching capacity and I have to start deleting some folders. So I deleted, I think, more than 12 years worth of emails, and it was about, I think it was, I want to say 300,000 maybe, but I could be over, but it was a lot. Well, one of the recommendations I would say is, because I think everyone has touched upon this on the call, is it isn't any one thing. And you do have to kind of be like a Sherlock Holmes of your marketing team. You have to do the detective work. So to kind of keep yourself abreast of that detective work, because let's face it, I mean, as consultants, it's really easy for us to go in and say, these are the primary issues. This is what our tools have told us. But when you're in the thick of it day to day, you don't necessarily actually have the time to do that investigative work. Yeah. So I would say pull out your data and review it periodically, whether it's every 6 months or even not once a year, perhaps every 6 months. Let's get into good habits here and look at your domains. So start looking at your metrics by domain. So you're looking at your Gmail domains, your Outlook domains, your Yahoo domains, and start looking at trends that way. Aggregate all of that information. So over time, you can start seeing the trends, and then you're able to then start making some informed decisions by what your aggregated information is telling you, and you can add to that. So it's something that will be ticking along. Perhaps your data team can help you create something quite snazzy, so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. And it's a nice way to just kind of keep on top of things without having to spend a lot of your own personal time trying to get to the bottom of any one thing. That would be one of my recommendations to stay on top of deliverability if you don't necessarily have a lot of resources to you.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
There we go. I love your quotes.
That's a Ben Franklin one, I think. I can't take credit for that at all. I think that's a really good point. I think the other point, which nobody's really touched on, is not every email address is equal, right? They're not all worth the same. So knowing which ones are valuable and which ones you need to focus on, and maybe that's by domain or by specific email address or by segment or by whatever, surely that's a better way to prioritize than just saying, throwing your hands up and going, I got a deliverability problem.
Yeah, but
or maybe
again,
not.
no, but what that then means is that's still okay. So we have to come to the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that the majority of email marketers out there are under budgeted, under resourced, overworked, and they're very much almost like on a treadmill. So for them to actually be pulling out a lot of data to analyze on a regular basis, or all of these kind of things is for the big teams. There are some awesome teams, and I'm thinking of one at the moment, right? Change.org, right? They're phenomenal. They're on top of it. They're proactive and everything. Not all marketers and the brands are able to do those kind of things. So again, if we were to actually create this email and more session and do it for, okay, if you're this kind of brand, if you've got tools, if you're this kind of brand but you don't have tools and you have a medium team, or if you're this kind of brand and you have no tools and you've only got one or two of you, right? We're going to come up with totally different recommendations, really, and workarounds. And I think that's the hard thing. I think that really is what it comes down to, is that you have to understand the limitations. In an ideal scenario, yes, we'd all have the tools, we'd all have the time, we'd have the resources, we'd have the team, and we'd be able to, and we'd have a data team sitting there who's waiting for us with our every request.
Yeah. That's everything we want.
Yeah. And what Adiola said was just gold, right? But it's not always the case. And it really is a case of trying to do your best. And I guess because I've got such a heart for the marketers, I kind of also want to say to them, listen, I know you're doing your best, and that's I understand to a certain point, that's all you can do at some stage. And that's why people will end up coming to us, because they get to the point where they're not being able to maintain it well enough, because they haven't got the budget, the resource, the prioritization and everything, until they get to that point. And then that's when they'll call us in. And, and that's a bit tough.
Amazing what a spam house listing will do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when it gets expensive too.
Yeah.
Right. And, and it's an overused analogy that good deliverability management is like insurance, but it really is in a way. And Kath, I think you might have just hit on, if not a content piece, maybe your entire next book, which is kind of like the deliverability maturity matrix, right? So you got brands, and you got how much budget they have, and we can make it 3-dimensional and super complex. So I love it already. Listen, we have hit 25 past the hour, and I want to give some people a chance to get over to the roundtables and ask specific questions. We haven't been able to get to everybody's question, and that's unfortunate. But great that so many people ask questions. Thank you so much. We will grab those questions and come up with some sort of way to follow up. Leave that one with us. But let me just grab a couple of things to show you here. So first off, as I said, that's all the time we've had for today, and that's it for Series 2. So please let us know what you thought by giving us some feedback in the chat, and join me in giving a big thanks to our Series 2 sponsors, our gold sponsors, Iterable and Validity, and our silver sponsors, Email Expert and RP Origin. Absolutely, big claps for all those folks. Also, please give me a big thank you to Adiola, Andrew, Ignacio, and Kath for providing their really, really invaluable insights. It was such a fascinating conversation. We probably could have gone on for another couple hours if they had let us. Most of all, I want to thank you for spending your time with us today and for joining us throughout the whole series. We've had a lot of fun producing it. We hope you've had a lot of fun coming along and you've learned a lot of stuff. And we hope that our paths will cross again. But for now, it's time to head over to the roundtables. This is your opportunity to join the conversation with our panelists, meet other marketers who are facing similar challenges. So go find a table, turn on your sound, your video, be part of the conversation. Don't worry if you're wearing that so comfy but increasingly tattered hoodie. It's maybe time to retire that hoodie. We're coming out of lockdown. Put the hoodie away. That's your COVID hoodie. Don't throw it away. Don't get rid of it. Just put it in a box. Dig it out in a couple of years and be like, oh, that's my COVID hoodie. But for now, we won't judge. The conversations aren't recorded, and it's a totally safe space. And remember, one lucky roundtable participant will win the Kindle version of Kath's book, Holistic Email Marketing. If you can't join us until we meet again, please be safe and make good choices.